Hello, Genie OK Boomer here. Welcome to this week's vlog. This week we're talking about climate, as you know from the title, or more specifically, climate change, or more specifically than that, climate change alarmism. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to start with an article that recently appeared in the Wall Street Journal. It's by Bjorn Lomborg. Now, if you don't know who he is one of the co-founders of the environmental group Greenpeace. And he had a falling out with the other founding partner, actually the whole organization. He left, and one of the reasons is because of, well, the alarmism. In other words, he understands, he agrees, or he believes that there's a problem with the climate, or that the earth is getting warmer, but it's not the emergency that everybody, or that this 1% that I'm going to be talking about, this 1%, and you'll know what I mean by 1% in a few minutes, but the extreme measures that they're calling for to combat climate change. And well, let me just give you a couple paragraphs, well, 3 paragraphs actually from the article. And by the way, I always link to these articles, as I'll be linking to a Monmouth University poll that I'm going to, I think actually it's Monmouth University poll. Somebody can correct me in the comments. Anyways, I'm linking to that too, this poll that I'll be citing in a moment. But let me just give you these 3 paragraphs, because this will give you an idea of where Lomborg is coming from and how, well, the damage, well, here's the title: How the Climate Elite, this would be the 1%, spread misery. And the subtitle: Most people are more worried about high gas and food prices, which green policies make worse. As if we didn't all know that. That's just obvious. But let me just read a little bit of the article. And again, I link to the whole article, which I recommend everybody to read. So, the chattering classes who jet to conferences at Davos or Aspen have for years been telling the rest of us that our biggest immediate threats are climate change, environmental disasters, and biodiversity loss. They point to the current heat waves killing thousands across Europe as the latest reason to change our societies and economies radically by switching to renewables. Such arguments are misleading. It's true that it's true that as temperatures rise, the world will experience more heat waves. But humans also adapt to such things. In Spain, for example, rising temperatures have actually led to fewer heat deaths, okay? Rising temperatures, fewer heat deaths, because people have adapted faster than the temperatures have gone up, which is his main point. Yes, perhaps the earth is warming a little bit, very, very slowly, but we humans adapt. We've been adapting to weather since we were cavemen, since we discovered fire and wearing animal skins. We've always adapted, and as Lomborg points out, we adapt faster. We're talking about 1.5, at most 2 degrees Fahrenheit over the next 100 years, and it's just absurd to think that we're not going to have a technical solution within, well, before the expiration of 100 years for a 2% rise in global temperatures, the temperature of the earth. The point is here that people have adapted faster than temperatures have gone up. It simply took, this is the point, it simply took air conditioning, public cooling centers, and better treatment of maladies that are caused or aggravated by heat, such as heat stroke and heart disease. Now, now coming up, this is a big fact that our friends on the left and the climate alarmists, same people actually, forgive me for repeating myself, but this is the point they miss that Lomborg makes, so pay attention to this. The exclusive focus on heat deaths is also misleading. Across the world, low temperatures are much more dangerous than high ones. 500,000 people die each year from heat, but more than 4.5 million die from cold. While rising temperatures, this is the important point, while rising temperatures will increase heat deaths, they will also decrease cold deaths. And as we just saw, 500,000 people die from heat each year. More than 4.5 million die from cold. So the net benefit, at least as far as deaths from weather and from temperature, we want to be warmer more than we want to be colder. Now, I just want to jump to another point before I get to the poll I'm going to show you, which is that this reminds me, well, actually, a personal experience. Well, first of all, you may recall a story from France going back several years ago, maybe even more than a decade ago. First of all, well, where 10,000 French people, mostly older people in French hospitals, died from heat stroke, from extreme heat. This was many years ago, more than a decade ago. It could be more than 2 decades ago. I don't remember when I read the article, but they died because 2 reasons. One reason, because the staff, the hospital staff, they were on their 6-week vacations. They didn't want to come back from their vacations to take care of these people suffering from the heat. So they died. These people died. So I would say, first of all, France passed a law that requires these people to come back when there's a heat emergency. But also, so what this heat wave that is occurring now in Europe, and by the way, this is Western Europe, other parts of Europe, Northern Europe, they're getting record cold. It's getting colder, but that's another vlog for another day. The point is, or that was one point about don't go on your 6-week vacations, but what Spain did, all they did was get air conditioners. And France, these hospital rooms where these poor people were dying, they don't, or they didn't, maybe I hope they do now, but at the time they did not have air conditioning. So the solution is to buy air conditioners. It's simple, 2 words, air conditioners. But there's another point to be made here, because there's also a heat wave in England. As I said, in Western Europe, there is a heat wave, but it's not unheard of. But also, this reminds me of a personal story. A personal story when I live in Tennessee, where it gets, actually, it's been 100 degrees a couple of times, which is another point. This very high weather that they're having in Europe, we're having normal weather here. It's normal to get hot. But last winter, something that was not normal, we had I forget how many feet of snow in the winter. It went down to 6 degrees. My pipes were in danger of freezing, my cozy little condo. But when the snow was that high for a couple of days, and on those days they were starting to plow the roads, but it took them a while to get to that. And I stayed off the road for 2 or 3 days, and I did it for a very simple reason, because I'm born and bred in Detroit, and I used to drive. I know how to drive in snow and over ice. I have experience doing that. But here in Tennessee, where it's so rare, probably there are people who just got their licenses who have never had to, or maybe even have been driving for a few years, who had never had to drive over ice in this kind of snow. And boy, I was going to stay off the road because I didn't want to risk getting hit by one of these inexperienced drivers, which gets me back to Europe. Their main problem is that the heat wave is such a rare occurrence. They're not prepared for it. That's all. They don't have experience. They don't have to do anything that people who live in Alaska don't have to do, to use an extreme example. Or for heat, that's if it's cold. And for heat, they don't have to do anything really differently from what I'm doing here in Tennessee, or what Israelis are doing and Arabs are doing, Jews and Arabs are doing in Arabia. They know what to do, but they're used to that kind of weather. And that is the solution. That's what Lomborg is saying, that the solutions for now, they're all there for what's happening now. All the solutions are there, and you just have to buy an air conditioner. You may not need it for another 10 years, but for heaven's sakes, buy one. They're not that expensive, and keep it, and then when you need it, you'll have it. It's no different than than buying a generator for your home in case the power goes out for a rare occurrence. So now I want to get to the 1% because this is the real issue. It's the one, Lomborg uses the term elites, but this is a poll from Monmouth University. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And this is the concerns of the American people. We're going into an election in a few months, and if you're a politician running, you want to know what are the most concerns. So here's the chart. I'm putting it up, and you see at the top, 33% inflation, and then right below that, gas prices and the economy, and then groceries. And when you get down to groceries, you're down to 6%. So go down, I drew a nice little rectangle around it. Climate change, 1%. That's what I mean. Only 1% of America, the American people, the American voters care about climate change. The problem is that the entire government, the Biden administration right now, they're in that 1%. So you hear all these complaints from liberals about the 1% and the 1% control everything and they run the country and we have to do something about the 1%. They're talking about the 1% of high income people and rich people, the quote-unquote wealthy. That's what they mean. People who, through their own hard work and genius, created products and services that benefit the rest of us. That's their 1%. But the 1% that's hurting us, as Lomborg pointed out in his article, it's the 1% who are worried about climate change. And that's where we're all stuck. I remember Rush Limbaugh, when he had a show, the late Rush Limbaugh, and when Clinton was elected the first time with a Democratic Congress, House and the Senate, and he came up with a phrase, America held hostage. He would start every show with that, just about, maybe every show, America held hostage, and he referred to the unified all-democratic government as a hostage crisis. And we were all hostages. And then when Clinton lost the House and the Senate in the next election, the midterms, then the hostage crisis, he celebrated hostage crisis was over. So that's what it is right now. America held hostage again, this time to climate alarmists who are also Democrats. We are held hostage by them. Hopefully we can hope and pray that something will get better in January, when hopefully at least a new House, a Republican-dominated House will take over, but hopefully also a Republican-dominated Senate. But it's going to really have to wait for 2024. And this is maybe some of my liberal friends or liberals who are watching this can explain this to me, because I don't understand this. They have this idea of a transition to a green economy, the Green New Deal, which they have to admit would take decades to accomplish. The problem is they may have only for about 5-6 months to do it, because a lot of that's going to be stopped. Biden's presidency essentially will be over as of next January, when that's the way the election, we can't predict, but that's how, if that happens, that's what will happen if the Republicans take over at least one House. His presidency is essentially over. He'll be limited in what he can do by executive orders. And remember the Brule decision from the Supreme Court recently that he was talking about declaring a climate emergency. Remember, he was going to do some stuff by executive order. He made the announcement yesterday, and it turned out to be pretty weak beer, because the Supreme Court spoke. They ruled that the agencies, such as the Environmental Protection Agency, which is under the administration, their powers are limited. They cannot make laws. To do anything major, Congress makes the law. Congress has to pass a law to do anything major that Biden wants to do, and that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen if the Republicans take over. but it's going to be very hard, put it that way, starting next year. And then in 2025, if we have a Republican president and a Republican House at least, and maybe a Republican Senate, then it stops dead. Their whole agenda, number one, it stops dead. Number two, it's reversed. And number three, you're going to have drilling opened up again in our country. Gas goes down to $2 a gallon. I mentioned this in an earlier vlog. And then what are Democrats going to say when they run again? How are they going to assure people that if they're given power again, that they won't restrict drilling again and try to start the new Green Deal over again? And even if you have a president who, a Democrat who promises what Clinton did in one of his State of the Union addresses, where he stood up and the very first thing he said was, the era of big government is over. So a Democratic candidate is probably going to have to say that, number one. And number two, get people to believe him, because that's what Clinton said, and we see how that turned out. And I guess now you see how this vlog turned out. So thanks as always for stopping by. I really appreciate the time that you spend with me. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions for future topics, comment section below the video. Share the video with anybody you think would benefit from it, especially your liberal friends. But most of all, come back. Oh, and subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. But most of all, come back and see me again, because I would love to see all of you again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.